So Jimmy Butler just got suspended by the Miami Heat for 7 games, and he's in the verge of being traded. So could another Levine for Butler work? We'll talk about it right after this intro.
This is your home for all things Chicago Bulls. Join the conversation. You're listening to Chicago Bulls Nation.
What is going on, Bulls Nation? So it just announced that that Jimmy Butler has been suspended for 7 games, and I think there's an appeal. But he publicly asked for a trade. Right? I'm showing you the Bulls highlights because he's one of the more beloved Bulls, in the past 10 years. He works hard, a great defensive player, and we have playoff Jimmy. He rises up on the occasion. But like Zach LaVine, there are a lot of actually, it's lesser than Zach LaVine. There's a lot of baggage attached to acquiring player like Jimmy Butler, more so than Zach LaVine. So we don't really know what the market is, but I know he damaged mostly his trade market by coming out and asking for a trade. So he's hurting his value, and that doesn't work well with Miami Heat. Now, there's only a few teams that could work out for Jimmy compared to Zach, mainly because of their age. Zach is 29, Jimmy is 35. If you think that Zach makes a lot, Jimmy makes more, and he has a player option that, assuming he will, not pick up if he signs to another team and have him for extension. There's only a handful of teams, like I said earlier, maybe Golden State, but that's kind of complicated. He could certainly help a team to win now, but what are you going to do if you're actually going to give up valuable pieces? Is that worth it? Is that worth the risk? And not only that, we're not talking about the salary because there's, a minimum, maybe like 4 or 5 million difference between his salary and Zach. And in the big context, that's not too much. But I guess another option is that another thing you got to worry about is his attitude. He brings drama wherever he goes. Is he going to mesh with somebody like, for example, Nikola Jokic? Is he all of a sudden going to call out his teammates like walking in the door? Let's say he goes to the Nuggets and they don't talk about extending him right off the bat. So that means he has no guaranteed money. There's no guarantee that he's going to be back. Is he going to throw a fit? So things like that. There is a lot of risk in getting somebody like Butler. If you are a contending team, if you are an established team and you're actually giving up assets, for example, like Golden State, they're going to give up Kuminga. Is that worth it? Maybe, depending on how you look at it. If you're giving up picks, maybe you don't want to be in a position where you give up, let's say, a first rounder, and then Jimmy starts going downhill or starts, being a diva and all that stuff. Now you signed a 36-year-old for $55 million a year, and then he just started declining. So more so than LaVine. LaVine, you get him, you keep him for 2 more years after this year. If you don't like him, cut loose. And the Bulls are not asking for much, and then he doesn't have an attitude problem as well. So with that being said, is Jimmy a better player? Absolutely. Better player than Zach. But I think it's less, if you're talking about risk, it's less risky to get Zach LaVine. Now with that being said, I put this because Miami is not a team to known for just shedding salary and tanking. So they want players that can help now. Would they accept a Zach LaVine? Let's say there's no takers. If I was Miami, I'm not gonna take a straight up Zach for Jimmy. It's not gonna work. The Bulls need to put up another player in there. But so what is advantage for the Heat? Let's say that Jimmy is becoming Jimmy, where he just stands in the corner and no one was taking, right? Let's just say, for argument's sake, no one is biting. Golden State doesn't want to give up Kuminga. The Denver Nuggets doesn't want to give up assets. Phoenix Suns not going to work because of Bradley Beal. Let's just say there's no takers. If you're the Bulls, would you take the chance of sending Jimmy back? Then now what does it make? What is it? How does it benefit the Bulls of getting Jimmy? Well, you hope that Jimmy doesn't pick up his option if you're the Bulls. Or you hope that before the end of the season, you would strike a team that would, offer a sign and trade for Jimmy. For example, this season is over. And then you'd be like, all right, Jimmy, do you want to opt out? Because, we can send you to Golden State so they don't have to give up assets, or maybe just minimal assets. Just salary match. They can keep Kuminga, for example. or whoever it is that Jimmy wants to play for. We'll just want 2 second-round picks. That is it. If you're the team acquiring Jimmy at that point, you're not giving up real assets. Maybe just give us a 1 second-round pick. I don't know. Something like that. Because we're willing to give up Zach for expiring anyway. So might as well do that for Jimmy. And in the process, maybe he helped the Bulls. Let's just say the Bulls is not going to lose enough games. Maybe they'll get into the playoffs, sell some tickets, and, as an 8th seed, I don't know, because you got Jimmy. I think there's a benefit of getting Jimmy instead of Zach right now, just because from the pure speculation that maybe somebody picks up Jimmy. But if no one does, man, that's $53 million. Next, that is a very dangerous proposition for the Bulls as well, because Jimmy doesn't fit the timeline of, let's say, the Rockets, the Bulls, any team that's kind of like young, trying to, the Rockets, he just doesn't really fit the timeline at all. But yeah, with the Bulls, no, he doesn't fit Matas, the young core that we're trying to build. His game, he can shoot threes, but he can't space the floor that well. So you just hope that if you're the Bulls, you get Jimmy Butler, and you can flip him next year. Or maybe not even flip him. Maybe he was just like, all right, I'm going to opt out and I'm going to sign directly with Brooklyn. Now you just freed up 40-something million in cap space. And that, in it by itself, is already a win. Because I was willing to trade Zach LaVine for like Steven Adams and a bunch of expiring. So just the Bulls can make some moves next year. But we'll see. I don't think, if I was the Heat, I don't think they're going to get LaVine at all, and then another player. Can they get something better? Maybe. I don't know who. I can't point a team exactly that would be like. I know a lot of teams that can use Jimmy because he's a really good player. I just don't know if those teams are willing to give up like premium assets to acquire Jimmy. If you're Orlando Magic, would it make sense to get him? Sure, like he would help his team. But the way of thinking as well is that, is he gonna affect the attitude of Paolo Banchero, or is he gonna clash now with Franz Wagner like he clashed with Cat and Wiggins back in Minnesota? Is that gonna happen? Are you gonna let a 35, 36-year-old do that to your young core? Those are the teams that you gotta look out for. If you're getting Jimmy, you're getting a very good player, but at the same time, you risk that. If you're the Bulls, you could probably risk that because you don't have any young core. You only have Matas Buzelis. That is it. I don't even think that's a core. So you get him, you hope he leaves, or if he doesn't, then you only have one more year of Jimmy and hope that you could trade him. But let me know in the comments, do you think that it's a good idea to get Jimmy back here in Chicago? I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.